Welcome to a very special edition of the Rubin Report. And I'm not Rubin. I'm Larry King, and I will be interviewing Dave Rubin. Welcome to your show.
This is wild. Larry King guest hosting my show from his studio.
And
is this
I'm very
real life?
nervous, David. It's all new to me, and it's just it's spine-tingling.
Yeah, this must be very exciting. I mean, you've interviewed everybody, but this has got to be...
For me...
Pretty much...
It's the tops.
This is
a thrill.
What would you say, like Dalai Lama? Top three?
Dalai Lama? Oh, no. Dolly's way down.
Dolly's down there? I just want to know if I cracked the top three, basically. So who are the top two?
I'll pick one from entertainment would be Sinatra.
All right, Sinatra, that's respectable.
And one from the political world, 7 presidents.
All the presidents, yeah. And now Dave Rubin.
And Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report.
But you're freaking out right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, I'm nervous about it. Were you a nerdy kid who was interested in politics when he was 6 years old?
You know, I always thought that I was right between cool and nerd. I remember around 6th grade or something thinking that it was going to be work to be cool, like the cool kids, to be around the cool kids, because I never felt cool, and I was always, I was into science and video games and board games and all that stuff, but I played sports too. But I remember thinking it would be hard, it would be effort to be with the cool kids all the time, and I knew I would never be at the top of that thing. So I kind of hung out with the nerds, and I loved it. I literally, I kid you not, I did not touch a sip of alcohol or smoke weed or a cigarette or anything in high school. I was up with my friends playing video games every night.
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, just like my esteemed interviewer, and I grew up in Long Island and lived in Manhattan for most of my adult life until I moved to LA 4 years ago. So I'm a true coast-to-coast guy.
What'd your father do?
My dad was is in sales for women's clothing. He's in the schmata biz.
In schmata biz in New York. Yeah. When did you get interested in politics?
I think probably around 7th grade. I think it was 1988 was the Dukakis versus George H.W. Bush. And I remember we were doing like a mock election in my social studies class. And I remember George H.W. Bush had said to Dukakis, "You're a liberal." And Dukakis said, "I'm no liberal," or something to that effect. And I remember thinking, this doesn't make any sense to me. Liberals are the good guys. Why would you be afraid of saying you're a liberal? And that was really my awakening to sort of being a liberal, which to me meant looking out for other people. It meant caring about the other and trying to make sure that we have some sort of cohesive society and not being truly racist or bigoted or any of that stuff. I think what's happened to the word liberal, especially in the last couple of years, as I talk about on my show, has really changed. But I've always been interested in politics. I was a poli-sci major, so I may be the only person in America who got a poli-sci degree and is actually using it for something.
Did you want to get into the realm of running for office?
Yeah, I did. Actually, at first, I thought I would go into politics. And I remember I was in a politics class, I think my junior year of college. I went to SUNY Binghamton. So I came through the state system and didn't have to spend a ton on college, and that's why I'm very much for state-funded education. And I remember being in a class about public policy, and the professor, every day we'd be in there, he would talk about how nothing works the way it's supposed to be. The system just doesn't function the way it is. And I kind of remember thinking, this doesn't seem right. Who would want to be part of this system? And I think a lot of people feel that way, which is why it's really why we end up with such corrupt candidates, because who would ever, I mean, would you ever, in your whole lifetime, would you have ever wanted to go through that machine,
well, the best
lies
of us,
and all of that? Yeah.
Esquire did a great article years ago on 100 people who would be great presidents, and you don't know them.
Yeah, of course.
Because the best of us doesn't run.
Yeah, and it just seems so obvious now. And look, we can talk about Trump and Clinton and that whole thing, but it's like we got somebody in office who, I've been saying, I think this might be good now. I think there's some opportunity. I wonder about his moral center. And, as I was just saying to you in the green room, I think he's a populist, not an ideologue. So maybe there's a way that the population can actually push him to do good things as opposed to an ideologue who really believes something that could potentially be scary. So I think there's opportunity there. But look what he had to do to become president. Crooked Hillary and Little Marco and Lyin' Ted and all this stuff that has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with, for 50 years that you've been talking to all of these incredible people.
How many issues were really discussed?
There was build a wall, right? Which now I think he's backtracking a little on. Or, deport these people. Now he's backtracking on some of that stuff, which I think is actually fine. But all of this stuff, it's like, it doesn't feel like we had an election. It feels like we had a popularity contest.
So you chose, rather than getting into the game, talking about the game, asking about the game, looking at the game.
I think that, well, for me, and I'm talking to the right guy now, I mean, that concept of figuring out why people think the way they think, like just sitting across from somebody and really trying to not grill them. Actually, I'll give you a question here, which is sometimes people say to me, Dave, you do too many softball interviews. And my policy on interviewing is I want to watch them hang themselves. So
I want to learn, and I want to get it the best way I can.
Yeah.
And the dumbest way to learn is to scream at someone or to attack them or to make them defensive.
Yeah.
If you want to learn, like someone said, if somebody asked me, if you were going to interview, Saddam Hussein or the guy who bombed 9/11, I would have said to him, you were from one of the richest families in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Why'd you leave? See, I want to get at him. I also knew a long time ago that no one evil thinks they're evil. So you don't comb your hair in the morning. Hitler didn't comb his hair and say, I am a terrible person.
Right. He thought he was doing pretty great stuff.
Right. So you have to come at him from the angle until you get to.
Yeah.
Like I used to interview racists, like George Wallace when he was governor before he changed. And I talk about the pigment of skin. What is it about the pigment of skin that would cause you to think differently about a person?
Yeah.
Why do you buy tanning lotion?
Right. And isn't that much more interesting than just the minutia of the day-to-day machine? I think that is what the people are upset with more than anything else. They're sick of what cable news has done to us. This
breaking news.
They're breaking news literally. I mean, they're breaking the way news should be delivered to us, and people are tired of that. This idea of outrage culture that we're in very much. Every morning you wake up and you can look at Twitter and figure out a 1,000 reasons that people are outraged. And then at the end of the day, it's like they're reporting on, it's like you've got all these reporters, and what are they doing? They're waiting for Trump to tweet. They're just waiting for him to say something so they can write a piece about it, and they can be outraged. And that's not news. And it's also, it's not even good for your brain. It's not good for your ability to do this, to just calmly for however long sit in front of somebody, hear you respond. That's what we need. And
you enjoy it, don't you? And you got to leave your ego at the door.
I try to. I really try to. I mean, to me, when I have a good interview and the hour finishes, I learn something, which is pretty great. And I would say almost every week I've learned something, maybe not something good. Maybe I thought, well, that guy said something really crazy and I don't buy that. But I've had interviews. I had Larry Elder on my show, who I'm sure you know Larry. And Larry is he
can frustrate you.
Larry, it was when I was doing my show here at Aura, and he was in this very room, and he was really pushing me. I was talking about systemic racism, and he was really pushing me on it. What is systemic about it? He wasn't saying racism doesn't exist, but built into the system, and really pushed me on it, and has changed my views a little bit on how it works. And he gets a ton of crap because he's a black conservative, so he's thought of as the other, and he's treated really terribly by a lot of the black community.
Self-hating.
Self-hating, and he's an Uncle Tom and all this stuff. So I'll have him on, and then I'll have somebody like Mike Cernovich, who's thought of as an alt-right guy. And either way, I like having those conversations. It's like, how would you learn if you only listen to people that you agree with? I have no idea.
You're not kidding. Do you, when you see a race like we just had, do you get turned off from the game?
Man, it's wild because this whole last 2 years, it's been exhilarating for me in a certain way. And the fact that I got to know you in these last 2 years and bring my show here and now do it independently. So it's been a good 2 years for me sort of professionally and personally and all that. There are times when it's exhilarating. There are times when you really feel like you're in something. And it's like when you're talking to people that are actually really saying something, not the interviews that happen every now and again where the guest isn't really offering something. They're either promoting something or they're they're just saying more of nothing for publicity's sake, right? But sometimes you talk to somebody and you go, wow, this is an idea that could actually change people. So it's been exhausting. I think everybody's kind of exhausted right now. We're having this weird time in America right now where people can't believe it. Like it happened, the Trump thing happened. I was on Joe Rogan's show the day before the election, and I said, I think this thing's 50-50. I really believe that the whole time. The Trump people were excited and the Hillary people were begrudgingly voting for her or not voting, and that's what happened. But it's exciting and it's also exhausting because I don't know that this is exactly how politics is supposed to be. You know, to me, a good political system would be one that we don't have to talk about it that often, you know? One that it works, and because it works, we don't have to think about it constantly and worry about it.
She won the popular vote.
Yeah.
Had he won the popular vote and lost the electoral, the word rigged would be in our culture stemmed into our head every day now.
Yeah, well, that's right.
He'd demand investigations.
Of course he would. He was laying the groundwork for that, which, by the way, I called him on that. I said, you can't, it's possible that an election could be rigged, but you can't say it's rigged before it happens with no evidence. That's not to say the DNC didn't do some shady stuff, because they did. We know what they did to Bernie, and we know that, you know, that Donna Brazile was feeding Hillary questions, and so they did a lot of shady stuff. But that's different than rigging the election, actually changing votes and that kind of thing. But I think everybody is nobody wants this to happen again. Even if Trump has 4 great years, let's go on the best, the best way this could go. Trump has a great 4 years. The economy's chugging again. He's lowered taxes. We don't get into some extraneous war or any of that stuff, right? I think still, first off, I think he's going to be a one-term president no matter what. I suspect he'll be 74 by the time it's over. I think he kind of doesn't even he can't believe that he even won. You know, you know him. I mean,
I know him for 30 years.
You've known him for 30 years, so I suspect.
I've never known anyone this well who became president.
That's pretty good.
When you think about it, how many people know if you grew up with George Bush or you were in Chicago with Obama, you knew him. But I know this guy.
Is he in your flip phone? I know you have your flip phone. Is he in
I don't pre-number things, but I know his cell phone.
Yeah, there you go.
But I just, I've been to dinner with him, lunch with him. We were Fathers of the Year together in 1996 in 2006 in New York. They had a Fathers of the Year dinner, and he and I were chosen.
So for all the people that are worried about his moral center, that's been the big thing with me, is that I don't think he's Hitler. I don't. I think he's an opportunist. I think he's a populist. But I just don't know what he fundamentally believes. Can you put anyone at ease at any level on that? Because that's what I think people are worried about. I know he's
much more socially liberal than he was in this campaign.
Right, so that's the irony. The Republicans have come around to gay marriage, basically, putting Pence aside for a second, because there's a real religious piece to that. If you think about it, what did Trump do? He had Peter Thiel, who's an openly gay man, opened for him at the RNC and got an applause break. Trump talked about gay rights and they applauded and stood up. So he's changed things, and what people don't like is the way he speaks. And we have to kind of combine things that don't make sense. Can someone say really gross stuff? You know, the stuff about grabbing women and all that. Can you say things that really sound terrible, but also at the same time be doing good? And how do we combine all of those things? And that just shows that we're all complex. We've all done bad things. We've all said bad things. That doesn't mean we can't do good things. So that's kind of where we're at, I think.
Trump is he's an isolationist, I think, basically. He doesn't, can we make money from this?
Which pretty much should be how the government operates, right?
Except the government isn't there to make money.
The government's not there to make money, but if he just focuses on economics, just helping our basic economic system, maybe doing some infrastructure stuff, he has to do something relative to immigration. But if he can sort of do that stuff, and we don't have to think how sad it is for gay people that had to vote Democrat because one party basically hated them. One party said, you will not be treated equally under the law. And many minorities know about this. Certainly the black community knows about this throughout history. But that's a sad place to be. So if we can put that social stuff aside, and then people can vote on the things that actually government is supposed to do, economy, defense, things like that, immigration, I think that would be a net win.
Bill Clinton ended up, despite the problems, a very popular president, and generally called a successful president, $3 trillion surplus, wonderful speaker, ingratiating. You cannot not like him.
Everybody loves him.
Everybody.
Yeah.
How did she lose?
She has literally the reverse of that. I've heard that from many people that have met her privately that behind the scenes,
She's terrific.
That's what everybody
Great
says.
sense of humor.
I've heard that from many people. I heard that from a friend of mine who's a producer on a show that she went on a couple weeks ago, right before the election. Behind the cameras, she was great. Green room, great. Excited, engaging, knew everybody's names, blah, blah, blah. Then she gets in front of the camera. I think the fakeness, we live in a different time now. You know, it's not the time of network television anymore, with everything being pre-packaged and pre-produced and all that. So for example, we talked for literally 2 minutes sitting over there, and now we're doing this. There's no expectations. I said to you, ask me anything you want. You said you were nervous, but that you were going to be all right. But people are sick of all this pre-packaged nonsense. When she goes on, you know, Steve Harvey show, and I'm sure he's a perfectly lovely guy, but they've already given her the questions, or her team wrote the questions for him, or goes on all these other shows when she goes on Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. Again, I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but that doesn't win you anything. People want genuine. Look, I would have treated an interview with her, I think, the way you would have, which is I really would have tried to get to why do you want to do this? Why do you, Hillary Clinton, why do you want to do this? And I think that she missed that. It came off that she was just part of the corrupt system. People are tired of the system, and the proof is in the pudding because they voted for Donald Trump, who they aren't really sure what he believes. So I think her failure was that thing that, you know, a lot of people talk about when you've interviewed Bill, when he sat down and you thought, wow, there's something truly transcendent here. I think she just missed that. And I think the fake laughing and the fake smiling and all that stuff, people weren't feeling it anymore.
Do you think people will miss the oratorical skills of Obama?
Yeah.
As opposed to Trump? Because Obama may have been one of the great orators ever.
I got to say, I voted for Obama twice, and I've been hard on him on certain things, but basically I think he's been a good president, and we've had 8 pretty good years. There's some things that he did wrong. I think the Syria red line thing was a huge problem. Not to say we should be at war there, but when you say there's a red line, if we don't back it up, it creates all sorts of problems. Not only with our enemies, but our allies suddenly go, wait. The U.S. used to honor its word. So he's made a few errors, but it's basically been a pretty scandal-free administration. His speech the day after the election, when he talked about how we have to have an easy transfer of power, and in a democracy you don't always get what you want, and that we have to respect the system, and the system isn't always going to go your way. I thought it was one of his best moments. And I think he's really, really smart, and I think, as I said before, because Trump's a populist, I think Obama knows if he can build some bridges with him, Obama's going to be a man of the people when he's out of the office, and I think he'll be able to help influence Trump, and I think that could be good. So I think what could be happening right now is people realize that the far right has gone off the deep end, they realize that the far left has gone off the deep end, but if you're a decent liberal, if you're a basic liberal, and you're a basic conservative, an old school conservative, old school liberal, you're not an enemy with each other anymore. So what? You care, you have a little bit of a different feeling on taxes. The liberal wants it to be a little higher, Republican wants it a little lower. You have a little difference on abortion. Now, one of you may want it to be completely illegal and one want perfectly legal, but those are all things that's what a society's about, right? That's what the actual conversation of a society's about. And these people are not enemies, so I think there really could be a new center growing.
But the big question now is, do you worry about Mr. Bannon?
Look, Breitbart basically, they do news to the right the way that everyone else is doing news to the left. That seems to me to be the basic truth. So for a BuzzFeed or all of these other organizations that do sort of tilted news to the left, they're doing it to the right. And because most news organizations are left, they feel that Breitbart is completely out of control. Now, do they do suspect things? Sure. Do they lead with headlines in a shady way? And do they do clickbait and all of the other stuff that everybody else is doing? Yes. So the question is, what does Bannon really want? People are saying, is he an anti-Semite or is he a white nationalist or any of that stuff? I mean, I guest hosted for you for Politicking a couple weeks ago. I had the editor-in-chief of Breitbart on, this guy, Joel Pollack. He's an Orthodox Jew. He was wearing a yarmulke. So if Bannon's a white nationalist and an anti-Semite, he has a strange group of people that he's hired. I mean, he had Ben Shapiro on his network as well. They're not in cahoots anymore. So my basic thing would be you have to give it a chance. I will hold Trump's feet to the fire. Absolutely, absolutely. That's what you're supposed to do as an interviewer, as a journalist, as a public person. I'll do all that, but I think you have to at least, let's see who he picks, let's see what the cabinet all looks like, and then let's start seeing what they do. And the second they're doing something bad, you call them out on it. But protesting right now seems like a protest against the will of the people.
Mainstream media, where is it now?
Crumbling fast,
Why?
man. Well, I'll tell you this, I said this to you once before, but I really believe that you leaving CNN has a lot to do with this. There are so few people out there that people trust. But it's not only about trust, that they feel like they can turn on the television or turn on YouTube or whatever they're doing and feel like someone is doing their best to give you something decent and give you something honest and fair. I'm pretty sure you would say that you're not the perfect person. Fair to say? Fair to say.
I've heard that.
And right, and I would say the same thing about myself, right? We fail every day as people. But I think what the mainstream media has crumbled with is that they've put on all of these partisan people who used to work at campaigns, whose brother works at this campaign, who's in bed with this media person, or they have super delegates that are pretending that they're analysts, and all of this stuff, and they're all in bed together, and they go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and while these are the people that are supposed to be guarding the estate, they're guarding the hen house, and they're selling the chicken, they're selling the eggs out back. I mean, that's what they're doing, and everybody knows it. So the reason it's crumbling, really, though, is because online media, which has a slew of faults also. I mean, I'm an online guy now. You're an online guy now. I mean, the online media, look, it's Wild West, so any of us can get in. There's no barrier. That's a huge problem, because then anyone says, I'm telling you the truth, and congratulations, you're equal to anyone else. So that's a huge problem. But that said, you can get more truth. So, for example, when Hillary on 9/11 had the episode where she fainted or passed out or whatever it was, if we hadn't had online media, if that guy, that one random guy, hadn't videotaped that thing with his iPhone, that would have I sincerely doubt it would have ever trickled up that way. But it was on Twitter, and I remember seeing 5 minutes later when someone tweeted at me, I saw it's got 1,000 retweets. And then next thing you know, 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, whatever it ended up getting. And it's like, they can't deny the truth anymore. So we're in a weird spot where I think this election got them to parity. I think mainstream media and online media were exactly the same, and I think it's about to tilt. I think it's about to tilt in our favor.
The other example in our favor is, I wonder how many white cops shot black people before there was the iPhone.
Yeah. Look, we are getting information fast. Whether it's white cops shooting black people or black cops shooting black people, which has been the case of some of these incidences lately, I mean, we are getting information fast. There's also a huge risk in that, because you only see selective things too. You know what I mean? If you don't know, if it's a random person, you don't know where they clipped it. You don't know what happened right before that. You don't know what happened right after that. So there's a way we can all be manipulated. But as a general rule, I would be for more information is better. But again, to the trust issue, I think is the most important thing. There is a feeling that, and I think this is what crushed Hillary at the end. This is what kept her people at home. They felt that she was part of the system connected to the media that just was not being honest, that was mocking everyone in the middle of the country, that was telling everybody that they're bigots and racists and homophobes and all of this stuff. And it's simply not true. It's lazy thinking. Barack Obama 8 years ago was not for gay marriage. Was he a homophobe? I really doubt it. So you can't just expect the second you're okay with change that everyone who doesn't get on the change train with you is suddenly a bigot or a racist. And I think this is a huge problem of the left. And that's why right now I say often that defending my liberal principles right now is becoming a conservative position. That's a scary place for a liberal.
So what's the future? What's 5 years media going to look like?
The mainstream media is crumbling fast. I mean, it's really crumbling fast. So I think that the people, those of us...
the cable networks.
The cable networks are crumbling. But look, they have a lot of money behind them, so they'll adapt. And they should adapt. You need something mainstream. We can't just all cater our news to each other, to ourselves, basically. It's a huge problem. You know, we've talked about this before, that, you know, if you're just walking around and you only select, if you're a right-winger and you only listen to right-wing things, you're a left-winger, you only listen to left-wing things, guess what? That's fertile ground to start killing people, because you'll assume that you're so right and morally right all the time. So I think they're going to start crumbling. The crumbling's already begun. The question is, how does the online media replace them? Does it all morph into one thing? I don't know what the answer to that is, but we need better people in the game. We need better people. If there were 100 of people doing better interviews than me, I would consider this a win, and I'll find something else to do. I don't know, I'm not really good at much else, but I would have been a basketball player. I'm 40 years old with a bad knee, but you know.
You see a third party possible?
I hope so. You know, the same day you interviewed Gary Johnson a couple months back, I had him on my show, and I chatted while you were interviewing someone prior. I was chatting with him in the green room. Totally lovely guy.
Oh, yes.
Really decent fella. I thought, this is a guy I could smoke a joint with, I could go skiing with, have a nice time with. He really, I think he's a really decent guy. He failed miserably this campaign. You know, libertarianism, the idea of small government, lower taxes, not being involved in foreign wars, but having a strong defense so that you don't have to go to war. I think these are really simple principles. Not caring if someone sleeps with a man or a woman, not caring what they smoke in the privacy of their own home. These are basic, simple, libertarian, classic liberal ideas that make so much sense. He had such a great opportunity for all the people that thought Hillary was corrupt, for the people that thought Trump was a narcissist. He had a great opportunity to say, hey, here I am. This is what libertarianism is about. This is what liberty, what individual liberty, that the government should get out of your way and you as an individual have autonomy over your life. What a great opportunity that would have been. And instead, unfortunately, I think he was kind of willfully unprepared. I think he stammered and stumbled a lot. And by the way, I'll give him a little out on this, which is he's a decent guy. And trying to get a decent guy through this crappy system, you know, it's like putting something good into like a meat masher. Well, guess what? It's going to look like crap on the other side.
Why are we a two-party system?
We shouldn't be. I mean, I think it worked for a certain amount of time. Look, America is still, I believe, the greatest country on earth. I do believe in American exceptionalism because everybody wants to come here. Everyone. What generation immigrant are you? Your family? Were your parents first generation?
I'm first generation.
You're first generation. So I'm fourth generation, I think, on both sides. Everyone, my great-grandparents came here with nothing. Then my grandparents owned a little store. My dad made it into middle class, allowed me the opportunities to do what I do right now. This is the same story that everyone has, unless your ancestors were brought here as slaves or you were a Native American. And there's a lot to do in those communities to repair the damage that was done. But everybody wants to come here. People are still trying to get in. They're not trying to leave. Canada's not building a wall to keep us out, even though Lena Dunham and all these other celebrities said they were going to leave. Guess what? Nobody's leaving because it's still pretty great here. We have to get out of this two-party thing, though. The idea that the political debate is between Republicans and Democrats and that's it, that there's nothing out here, it's actually absurd.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt addressed the Daughters of the American Revolution once, and they had denied a black opera singer from singing there because she was not a daughter of the American Revolution. Mm-hmm. They had to go back to the American Revolution, and Franklin Roosevelt spoke the next night and began by saying, "My fellow immigrants," because we are all immigrants.
Yeah.
All right, well, winding it up, what's next for Rubin?
What's next for Rubin? Well, we just got to keep building it. We got to keep building it. And, you know, I wasn't ever even, when I started at Aura, when you kind of said, we'll let this guy in here, I wasn't even planning on doing an interview show exactly. I did my first interview with Sam Harris, and I thought, I used to do a little more newsy stuff and, you know, kind of the View kind of chat stuff. And I did this interview with Sam, and I thought, wow, that really getting into it with somebody, that's what I love. That's what I want to do. And the fact that, you know, this Larry King guy said, you're all right at this. You never gave me suspenders, though. I really thought, there was going to be a pair of suspenders here. But
Find your own niche.
I got it. Well, you don't want to know what kind of underwear I'm wearing. But the point is, I want to expand what I'm doing. I want people to understand that you don't have to agree with everybody. You don't have to, just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean you have to hate them too. But get around the table. You know, all these people this year that were saying, you know, I'm not friends with someone on Facebook anymore. I can't talk to my cousin anymore. My brother and I don't talk politics. It's like, that's the symptom of a broken system. Because politics, you have to be able to talk about politics with the people you love and your friends, because that's how you make a better society. You don't make a better society by yelling at everybody. And that's why I'm always honored to sit across the table from you.
My guest has been Dave Rubin, the host of the Rubin Report, on this edition of the Rubin Report, in which I was happy to sit in for him. Next week, he'll be back interviewing. It'll be Rubin doing Rubin.
Or I just retire right now. We'll see.
And I will have the answer to Rubin will have the answer to the question, when cable networks put up breaking news and they get actual breaking news, how do they break into breaking news?